Hi, I'm Lynn Gorton. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Paraguay, South America from 1970 to 72 in a town called Uruguay.
My name's Betty Booth. I was a Peace Corps volunteer from 1972 until 1975, and I was in 3 countries, Paraguay, Venezuela, and Barbados. And I started in health and ended up in agriculture.
And what did you do in these countries?
In Paraguay, I was a health volunteer helping to do wells and helping 4-H clubs, 4S clubs. And in Venezuela, I was an editor for an international magazine. And in Barbados, I helped start the Ag Extension Office.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you.
So my name is Mary Wurges. I was in Peace Corps Paraguay from 1973 through 1976. So I was there for 3 years. A story that I remember very, very deeply is the first summer. Paraguay is very rural. I was out in Uruguay, which is a very rural town outside of the capital city, and by bus it's about 3.5 hours to get out there. When it rains, the road's closed, so kind of isolated a little bit sometimes. But the town had no electricity, and there was nothing for the youth to do, so I organized a volleyball tournament for the first summer, and I required the teams to be mixed of boys and girls, and when the girls came, their chaperones had to walk with them to play volleyball. And I had I don't know, four or five teams, and one team walked in from the Colonia, the Compañía, and they walked about 6 or 7 kilometers. So that was really fun, that whole summer. That was really good. That's what I remember. Thank you.
Glenn Sappy. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Paraguay, 1978 to 1981. I worked with the Agricultural Extension Service down there in a small town called San Pedro de Paraná. It was about an 8-hour bus ride from the capital city. Myself and about 40 other volunteers arrived there, and we went to 2 separate training areas, one with the ag volunteers and one with the other volunteers, and we had 3 married couples in our group. And my wife Ruth and I were assigned to a little town, and we worked in a couple schools there, and we got a couple projects going that were pretty interesting. A special development project that ended up funding a diesel rototiller. That was the foundation for forming a horticultural cooperative, and we were pretty successful with that project, and decided to stay a 3rd year. So we saw a good opportunity to finish that project out, and enjoyed our experience in Paraguay very much.
My name's Susan Lovett. I was in Paraguay from 1981 to 1983, and I worked as a community agricultural extensionist.
Hi, I'm Christy Erickson. I served in Paraguay 1987 to 88, based out of San Lorenzo, a suburb of the capital city, Asuncion. As a Peace Corps volunteer, I was there as a botanist, helping build up the collection of plants for this museum, and there were 2 other volunteers doing the same thing for fish and for birds, and our trainer also was as an employee there through the government, and he's still there working on insects. And we would take camping trips throughout the country to help build up the collections, but we were also trying to steer people's interest from collecting to research, so that, because the collections were about complete. So my interest was in wetland vegetation, and Paraguay is 2/3 wetlands, and I had 2 sites where I would go on a bi-weekly basis and examine the timing of flowering and fruiting of plants. One was near the capital city. I could get there by city bus, and the other I could actually walk to from my house at the agricultural campus in San Lorenzo of the National University of Paraguay. I've been back numerous times. My time there was cut short because for medical reasons, So, but I did serve a year and a half after our 3 months training, and I went back twice, 3 months at a time, partly to finish up my work and partly to finish up, or partly to do projects with my future counterpart, later counterpart, and she was with the Ministry of Agriculture. So we went to the parks, did environmental education. I was at a wetlands conference, studied Guarani, their second other major language, things like that.
I'm Rosemary Takis Mobley. I served in Paraguay between 1988 and 1990. And I guess if I wanted to share a little story, that the roads in Paraguay are treacherous. They're mostly mud, and if they're paved at all, they're crowned on the top. And the bus drivers drive, you know, like crazy. But getting on any bus and going anywhere is always an adventure. And I can remember one time sitting on a bus for a long drive. It must have been about a 6-hour bus ride, and there was a woman sitting next to me, and I didn't have a whole lot of Spanish at the time, but I offered her a piece of gum. It's one word, chicle, and she accepted the piece of gum. It wasn't, you know, an hour later we had a bus accident, and our bus was, you know, completely, you know, unable to operate after that. But she lived relatively close to there, and she took me by the hand and took me into her house and kept me for 3 days. Yes, it was a wonderful house. I mean, dirt floors, but impeccably clean and warm, and she fed me and kept me out of the rain and the adventure. So it's, I always tell people carry gum and make sure you share it with whoever you're sitting next to.
Tischler. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Paraguay from 1989 to 1991. I was an agroforestry extensionist. And Paraguay was an interesting site. I was the second volunteer in my site per se in Paso Jovai, and it was quite a long bus ride on unpaved, dusty, red dirt roads to my site. There were often times when the bus didn't get to my site due to rain, and I at times had taken tractors out of my site. Even my parents came to visit at one point, and they had to walk the last leg of the trip to get to my house. So transportation was an interesting thing. I had a bicycle. I hiked a lot of places. I hitched rides on the back of a motorcycle, my counterpart's motorcycle, you name it. Whatever it took to get in touch with local farmers, local people, I did it. And I found the whole experience very rewarding. I miss the place. I have not been back since '91, so I'm really curious to hear what happened. One thing I did hear subsequent to my service was they discovered gold in my site, in Paso Jovai per se, way out in the country. And so unfortunately, I believe those creeks and things that I, you know, swam in and played around are probably not there anymore, not the same condition anyway. And this is involving multinational corporations, you know, mining for gold, a major discovery in a minor, tiny little place. And I just hope to get back and see it sometime. And, you know, I wonder if the public plaza I planted in trees is still growing. I wonder of all the changes. There was the town I was in became electrified when I was serving. So in other words, when I arrived, there was no electricity. But while I was there, the electricity got turned on. There were no paved roads at that point. I'm sure they're paved now. I wonder if the SAAG, the Agricultural Agent's office, is still there in the same place. A series of unanswered questions that I hope to explore someday. But I would strongly suggest joining Peace Corps for anyone that's interested. Thank you.
I was in Paraguay from '89 to '92, and I was doing forestry work in rural Paraguay, 7 hours south of the capital, Asuncion. My name's Eric Wolf, and I'm living now in Madison, Wisconsin. But I also taught in the schools in Paraguay. But we also had garden projects. I kept bees, and I planted a lot of trees. But and I also was given a Peace Corps motorcycle. So, but the roads at that time were unpaved. So sometimes it would take 12 hours to get from the capital out to where where I lived, and when it rained, the roads were all flooded. So sometimes I was flooded into my site for up to a month. But the motorcycle was very useful. One story about that is there was a sick family next door, so I was able to take the 4 other people on my motorcycle. The five on a motorcycle to the at once. The kids rode up front, and everybody else was on back. And but we got him into the hospital where there was no doctor where I was. But in general, it's a great experience at Peace Corps, and I highly recommend it to anybody, no matter what age. Because even if you're older, most of these cultures that other countries, they respect the age, and there's so much to offer. And the interchange of cultural education is really great, because they would ask me questions about the United States, and some Paraguayans have come to visit me now in the United States, and that's another great thing where I can show them around. And then I also have a library project going where whenever next time I go back, I'm going to take Spanish books there, because the libraries can use Spanish books. But
And a story. I'm Alex Gordon. I was in Paraguay from 91 to 93. And I think one of my most memorable Peace Corps experiences happened right off the bat. After about 2 weeks in my site, it was a very rural site in Paraguay, and the people are very reticent, very quiet and shy. It was very hard to meet anybody. They really weren't sure what I was doing there, kind of thing. And after about 3 weeks in, I was in my hut one night, and I got hit by a tornado, and I'd never been in a tornado before. And the roof was flying off. I had to jump out the window, headed up, stayed with the neighbor's house till the next morning. And so the next day, all the neighbors gathered around, and my stuff was all over the schoolyard. The roof was off, my clothes were everywhere, my furniture was all destroyed, all the stuff I just bought in. And so they were all looking at me because they didn't know what I was going to do. They just figured that was it. And so I looked at them. I knew it was kind of a pivotal moment. And I just said in Spanish, well, thank God I wasn't hurt. And everybody just started clapping and cheering, and that was it. And I said, well, look, I'm going to go into the Peace Corps office and see if I could get some more money to replace my stuff. I'll be back in 2 days, I promise. And one of the people told me later on, they just assumed I was getting on the bus, and that was the end of it. So I came back. And when I came back, all the men had rebuilt my hut, much stronger than it was before. They painted it. The women had washed all my clothes, ironed, folded it. They cleaned all my furniture. Everything was set up for me when I got back. And so I said, well, I had some money. I said, well, I'll throw a barbecue. So that night, everybody came over. From then on, I spent the next 2 years just hanging with the village, and it was just, it was a great thing. So from that point on, it was a great experience. So difficult. Yep, it was hard as it could be, but it was very rewarding.